Hello everyone and welcome to episode 11 of the Rewatch podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, speaker of 7 languages of the free folk. Joining me this fine podcasting session are Amanda Howard.
Hello.
Stephen Howard.
I'm the bannerman of the Brotherhood without banners.
Nick Castillo.
This one, Samuel Tarley, forbids you to die.
And then the one and only Gary Delaney.
Always a fan of creepy children who hand spiders and balls to strangers.
He did it! He managed it!
He found a way. Alright, so we are here to discuss the first and second episode of Season 3. Episode 1, Valor Daharis, and Episode 2, Dark Wings, Dark Words. So the synopsis for Episode 1 is, Jon is brought before Mance Rayner, the king beyond the wall, while the Night's Watch survivors retreat south. In King's Landing, Tyrion asks for his reward. Littlefinger offers Sansa a way out. And this episode, episode 1, opens with another cold, literally and figuratively open of the events basically happening north of the wall there, with the Night's Watch basically, Sam in particular, fleeing, I should say, the attack from the White Walkers that have just basically happened there, and running into Ghost and Jorah Mormont basically saving the day there from him being killed pretty much by the White Walker there. Also, too, to kind of point out, this is the first intro we get to see on the map as they go through the credits there, that Winterfell has been burned. Key detail. A couple of introductions here. We get to meet Tormund Giantsbane.
Right.
We learn that Davos is still alive. And we are introduced to a character named Qyburn at Harrenhal later on in the episode there.
Yes.
I'm just super fucking excited about everything.
These are all wonderful people. They just have so much to contribute.
The great Sir Barristan Selmy makes his return to the show. And
Yes.
we learn a little bit about the Unsullied as well, too, there. So I want to kind of start off with my my favorite character, as you all know, Mr. Jon Snow, north of the wall there, hanging out with the wildlings. So he's got to, his basic mission is to try and convince Mance Rayder that he's there to kind of join the free folk, the people beyond the wall there. And he gives this story there basically of how he was witness to Craster taking one of his sons out to the wilderness to be given to a White Walker. And then when he told the Lord Commander, the Lord Commander said he already knew. And Jon wants to now fight basically for the living, or the side of the living there. So I was kind of curious here. Mance seems to kind of have taken it, but do you guys kind of buy that answer that Jon had given there?
He failed at his first answer, so he vomited up the very generic "'cause I want to be free," and they're like, "Yeah, right, motherfucker."
See, and that would be a red flag for me. No, but Gary's right. That would be a red flag for me if you fail that first question. If you lie on your first answer as to why you've come there, it's a massive red flag. And obviously they have to do it because cinema, and it builds tension and whatnot. But no way I'd trust someone after, hey, why did you join the military? Because I love freedom and I love patriotism.
Pew, pew,
But
pew, pew.
pew pew pew. Do you just really like shooting guns? Oh God, I love shooting guns. And I'm like, all right, well maybe we got to keep an eye on this guy. Maybe this guy is going to be here for different reasons. He's not going to be completely honest with us. And I don't think that Mance Rayder does entirely trust Jon from what I see. He's willing to go along with it because he has no reason not to. But I'm not sure he entirely trusts Jon. But I like what Gary said. I think it's a big red flag.
There was a theme in these episodes that I kind of noticed throughout was kind of like how people are playing the game, on how some people who are very not wise, Jon Snow knows nothing, how they're learning to play the game. Yeah, I think that Jon Snow said something that he just kind of thought maybe they'll buy, but it was very poorly given, and he can tell that these people are like closing in on him, just waiting for Mance to say kill him and he'll be dead. I think he's trying to learn to play the game. I don't think he's quite there. I think whatever answer he gave, he doesn't fully buy, but I think that it's more the notion that this guy was able to take out the half hand than it was Jon has good merits of his own. It seems like he's a good fighter, and I think that's why Mance keeps him. I don't think he buys it.
I don't think he does either, but I think he wants to. I
Sure.
mean, love another person, especially from the Wall, a brother of the Night's Watch. I think Jon made a good decision when he was realizing he was going to have to tell something that was as close to the truth as possible that would still be conceivable as a reason for him to betray them. Because it has us wondering, like, oh, is he actually going to do this?
Yeah,
I like that they did that, honestly, because, I mean, too often when you see people acting in a show towards somebody else, it's really dramatic and, like, obvious that they're, like, doing it.
I will say too, I had that kind of thought as well of like, sometimes the best lie to tell contains a portion of truth in there. So he's probably very right that, he's kind of disturbed by the fact that Craster is giving his sons to the White Walkers there, and he wants to fight for the side of the living. But I'm sure he still has the ulterior motive of like, okay, my job is to kind of disrupt or take out, because I'm a brother of the Night's Watch. My job is to take out this guy who is leading them all.
Mm-hmm. I think the the first, like, if he is buying into what he's saying, and this is true, it's the most deceitful, dishonorable thing that Jon has done thus far. Everything he's done is, I want to be like the brothers in the Night's Watch. I want to go do what I'm supposed to do and uphold my oath and my code. And so to say, I'm a traitor, I'm going to turn against you all and join the wildlings who he's sworn to destroy, it's like the first big change he's had. So yeah, I don't think he separates himself that easily. I think he's trying to maybe still leave himself an opening, but he won't have that opening if he's dead.
I feel like if anything, it's an evolution, because in earlier seasons, like when Jon went to the Wall, he's like, oh my God, these are such honorable men. And he's like, these guys are rapers and murderers. Like, these guys are not heroes. And so I think if you believe that he truly did jump ship, it really just seems like an evolution of his character where he's like, I'm an honorable man. I'm surrounded by assholes. I'm surrounded by people who are assholes, but they're free. I don't know. I
Free asshole.
On a rewatch, I'm not as interested in the Jon Snow storyline. I held up a sign earlier. It's poor writing. Like,
Dang.
I think it could have been executed better.
Poor writing? Like, how? I'm curious of how you. So, I'll make the distinction. I'll make the point note again for the viewers here. I should say listeners, that Jon Snow is my favorite character throughout the show. Obviously, it's a lot. Like, some of it changed too with me reading the book. But I'm just kind of curious, Gary, of like how you're calling it out as poor writing.
I don't know. I guess maybe it's just as you say. Like, other people, like some people really like are rooting for Jon Snow, and I just he's not a character that resonates. He's somebody who like grew up like as a royal, and then he joined the Night's Watch, and he's like, "Oh, poor me! I'm good at sword fighting, and no one else is." And
And the fact that he's the complete opposite of your favorite character, Joffrey, has nothing to do with that at all.
I will weigh in at least. Sorry, you go ahead. Finish your thought, Gary.
Oh, that was me. No, you can go.
I was just going to say, to play devil's advocate to Gary's point, from what we know thus far through seasons 1 and 2, Jon doesn't really have much of a story arc. So I could see, I mean, anyone who knows anything, even if you've never seen this show, know that he's like has a part to play. He might be important at some point. We've seen enough of him on screen to know that he may have more to him than we know. But at this part in the story, there's not a lot to him. So as far as just playing devil's advocate, to Gary's point, if we don't know what happens past episode 2 in season 3, what happens if Mance offs Jon Snow? I mean, from what we know of him, he dies. He's dearly missed in the Night's Watch, but they're moving south. They're not coming back to try and save Jon right now. They don't even know if he's alive. And so, yes, I too think Jon is a very important character, and I really like him overall. But in this beginning rise, his incline in his character story, he's not really at the point where, like, Daenerys Stormborn has, a clear right to the throne because she had left and she's got dragons, which seem very important. The Baratheon Lannisters are in the capital, so they clearly have power as the reigning family there. There's a lot more to those stories at this point in the story than there is to Jon. So at least to play devil's advocate, to Gary's point, I can see that he could be written with more punch with his initial story. But right now, he's just the bastard from Winterfell, and his dad is dead.
I could see that. He's kind of, compared to the other characters, he's rather boring so far, even though he's going through all this stuff too.
Well, I want to throw a little chaos into the pot, and I want to say that I actually generally agree with Gary in terms of, it's not that I don't think that, I'm not sure if I think he's poorly written, but he's some rich, pampered, spoiled kid who gets thrown into a situation that he is able to... he does excel at the situation. He has the skills to excel at the situation. But he's not remarkable per se, except for the fact that he was rich. And it's like Batman at that point. Batman's fantastic at what he does. He has a great IQ, he has tons of money, and that's what Batman is. And my wife is
his superpower.
Yes,
Batman's
but my wife is insulting me via text message as I say this. So I sort of kind of agree with Gary on that point, and that's I've never been super drawn into the Jon Snow storyline, and that's just a me thing. I like the grand politics, and so I do think Jon does have a part to play in telling us the tale that you would not see in grand politics otherwise, and you would not see the story Beyond the Wall if it was not for Jon Snow. He is integral.
Integral.
Yes, he's that word.
He's integer.
To that.
Very important.
Happening. Yes, I'm sorry, I can't say words. But he's very important to the story-wise. I'm not sure I like him as a character, but he's very important story-wise.
Okay, so I guess maybe we're in a moderate agreement, which is that at this point, what I'd consider the B storyline, which is like talking about the White Walkers, follows Jon and Samwell Tarly and the other two dudes and the third dude in the Night's Watch and the Lord Commander Mormont.
All these dudes.
Pippin? I don't fucking know. It's
Merry and Pippin.
Dude.
Bilbo,
Merry and
Frodo
Pippin?
there.
Merry and Pippin, that's what I was going to say. I think it's Merry and Pippin. I don't fucking know.
It's the same story. It's fine. It's all fantasy.
Whatever. Anyway, but maybe that's sort of where I'm coming from, is like, Jon is an interesting character, but like, the only reason the story goes north because it follows Jon and follows Samwell Tarly. And honestly, Samwell Tarly is real. My opinion, gonna throw more grenades over the wall. Samwell Tarly, poorly written as well. Get loads of plot armor.
I think
Like,
you're using
he
the word.
sees a White Walker at the end of last fucking season. No explanation in season 3 how the fuck he got around this. And then it starts in season 3.
I think
and
you're using
he
the
finds
phrase
another
poorly
guy.
written wrong, Gary. I think you're using the phrase poorly written incorrect there. You just don't. you just want more explanation. And even in the books, I remember this in the books, it jumped basically from the White Walkers attacking to the Night's Watch basically on their march back south of the wall. It doesn't explain anything of how they survived there, basically. I think you slowly learn that from the conversations they have there, but it's not actually fully explained of how do these people survive in that part there.
So in the book, does Samuel Tarly like just walk up to White Walkers with his pants down his ankles, or like it's just
Was
and maybe it's
cinematic,
as you said,
though.
it's explained later, but like on screen, it's not believable. It doesn't make me like the character. It's just like a character that seems invincible because everyone who should fucking live dies. This dipshit who slides behind a rock survives. No good explanation why.
So
Maybe
yeah,
like as everyone was going south, he was behind the rock and just like took off running the other way while the army was moving towards the wall, going south, and then that's why, you know, he's off by himself running through the wilderness, and he meets Ghost and Geor.
So yeah, like I will definitely agree. The ending of season 2 into season 3 there, basically, it's really dumb that like Sam is sitting there staring at a White Walker and then somehow survives. I do completely agree with that there, but
Sneaking skill was at maximum.
yes,
Yeah.
he inflicted maximum damage on his first attack there.
Seems very legit.
Roll the
But-
20.
But I still wouldn't like go so far as like poorly written, just not as well thought out as it should be. But we will get into that point definitely later on in this discussion. Not this discussion, but this show discussion.
Yes. I did want to kind of pivot a little bit off that and actually move a little back in the scenes. It obviously we started off like you said in the cold start, and it is Samuel Tarly that is, you know, running away, get saved, all that stuff. And one of the first things I said to him, "Did you release the Ravens?" Nah, he didn't release no Ravens. He didn't do no thing.
Was he gonna release
Good
Ravens? That
job.
was confusing, and I've only watched the end of season 2.
I don't think
2
it's,
weeks ago. I didn't
agree that
understand.
I don't think it's very well explained, but I feel like he had, like they say, he had one job. And he should have been around the area to be able to complete said job, or be able to have the capacity to complete said job, because it's incredibly hyper important.
Was the Raven something that went into his original baseline role, which is that he's just like, or was that something that Jon Snow was supposed to do, so he took on Jon Snow's responsibility as steward to
Samuel's.
Yeah, so he just like sucked at the job he came there for, so it didn't. Anyway, maybe that was in the books. I don't know. It seems
I like an adorable fuck up as much as the next person, and Samuel is a very adorable little fuck up. But he reminds me of myself very much. But I just it kind of hurt to see that scene and just go, oh no. Yeah, everyone doesn't know this is happening because there are no Ravens, and now we have to go on this exodus to try to get back. And they'll definitely get back in one piece because they have White Walkers.
We know what a small trek is because we've been following it along for how many episodes?
For the last season.
Mm-hmm. I'll definitely agree. Like he completely effed up his one job, his one responsibility there too. But I mean, in the thought of this being a believable character, I mean, we all know he was not a very courageous character to begin with there too. So you can probably make the assumption that, hey, he got just way too scared and just got the hell out of there, basically, which is why he's still alive.
I'm not saying it's not believable. I'm saying I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't. You definitely don't like it either, but for sure.
Did you get it?
Yep. Steven, did you have anything else you wanted to kind of touch on for the episode?
Oh, let's see. We get our first real introduction into my second favorite character, Marjorie Tyrell. And when they are walking down the Oh, what is it? What is the area that they visit the orphanage in? I forget
Flea
what-
Bottom.
Thank
in
you.
King's Landing.
Wanking
Oh,
through.
Flea Bottom.
They're walking through Flea Bottom, and she gets out of her carriage. She goes through a puddle of filthy water. My lord, my ma'am, your dress. Oh, I have others. And she goes in there and she plays. Oh my God, such a fantastic, public diplomacy going on. It was your king. He'll always protect you and all that sort of stuff. And you're just watching. She's going, oh my God, she's masterful. She's not just this, whiny little girl, or I want to be the queen person, and just a random hottie. She is absolutely brilliant. She is clever. She is ready to play this game, and she's ready to play it better than some of the other people there. And you kind of see that with, I believe this is in this episode as well, when she has dinner with both Joffrey and Cersei. And Joffrey obviously likes Marjorie more than his mother at this point, and tells off his mother to an extent in favor of Cersei. And we're going to see a huge dynamic there of two masters of the game playing the game fairly differently.
Love those scenes.
Going off against each other. And it's absolutely, I love it.
I can.
Okay.
Sorry, you go ahead, Gary.
I'll let Nick go. Oh, I'll go. I was going to say, like, was there more of, like, to that scene? Like, was she playing a role, or do you think she's really, at this point, on a rewatch, if you hadn't seen any further, like, you might honestly think that she's not, like, she's a super nice lady. She's like, oh, well, now I have power, and with this power, I can, like, implement positive change and help these children in the orphanage. Like, the last scene you see in the orphanage was the queen looking at the headmaster lady and being like, if you need anything, come to me, but come to me directly. Like, basically saying that, like, she doesn't, as I would read it, like, she doesn't trust anyone else in the castle to implement her plan. She wants to be at the center of the plan. Like, so it's, but on this, like, weird political underground, like, do you start thinking, like, oh, well, maybe she's trying to, like, gain influence and power over the common people? And I don't know. It's a real good bedrock scene for that character who previously only was, like, the pretty new wife of Renly Baratheon.
And you can see, oh, sorry.
You're fine.
You can see that play out.
I'm sorry. I'll shut up. You go.
I'll be quick. I saw that scene, Gary, as come to me, come directly to me, because she's fearful that a random orphanage, matron coming to anyone else in the castle would either just be turned away or maybe killed for thinking that they're in connection with the queen. So I saw that more as not she wants to be at the center of the plan, but, like, trying to be genuine in the sense that if you need something, come to me. Don't go to anyone else because they won't help you. I will help you, type of thing. I agree with the masterfulness of that scene. I mean, you can meet anyone on the street in that situation and talk to them, but she went to the children, right? Shaping the young minds who can be molded, malleable, into what they'll grow up to understand that their king did for them. Not trying to get too political, but I was watching something just yesterday about the UDC and the Daughters of the Confederacy, and, like, all the teaching of young children and how that really shapes an understanding for a whole culture group. And so, like she was saying, don't you forget, your parents did honorable things and fought with King Joffrey, who led the charge and saved you all. King Joffrey was the hero of that story. And these young kids grow up, they'll think King Joffrey is the hero, when clearly we witnessed it, he was not. And that whole scene, yeah, it was just masterful how she knew who to talk to, knew what to say, and the genuine sincerity that she was able to deploy it with. So yeah, I think that was really telling of her character. I mean, in season 2, when we first meet her, it's like I don't want to be a queen. I want to be the queen. And I think we collectively all go, well, good luck with that. There's a lot of players on the board. But a scene like this really shows her that she has, the guts and the gumption to pull that kind of a thing off. So we're like, oh, okay, Marjorie's here to play. And yeah, like Stephen alluded to, like the more you see these interaction scenes, she can hold her own, and we see that dynamic shift between where Cersei thinks she falls in that hierarchy.
And I honestly think there are a lot of characters having that same discussion that Gary just had as well, in terms of who do they see Marjorie as. And I think, like, Gary portrayed the two sides of her. Who does the viewer think she is how Gary was prescribing it? Who does the viewer believe she is actually good-hearted because you haven't seen the rest of the seasons? I'm not saying she's not good-hearted. Not what I'm saying. Or does does the viewer think that she is just manipulative and this is all just a play? And I think it's amazing that you can see Cersei go down one of those roads, Joffrey go down one of those roads, the people go down one of those roads, and you can see all the different ways that this is starting to play out.
I honestly believe she's doing it for both. I think she's good-hearted, but I also think that she knows how to play people, how to manipulate, and it's really smart of her to get that out there, especially she has later on Cersei mentions well, you should be careful in that area, we were attacked there. Well, it was really smart of Marjorie to get out there immediately and start putting out her, because the common people will help protect her. She gets her reputation out there now. It's very brilliant, I thought. And noticed that Cersei really seemed to admire it too.
Okay, so question about Marjorie. In the book, how old is she at this point? Because there also could...
14.
Okay, so when she goes to the orphanage, if it was in the book's timeline of age, she'd be like a 14-year-old going to help kids who are 5 or 6, which is super fucking oh my god, we need to hitch our wagon to this gal. She's gonna be our queen someday. Yay! Whereas in the actual actor is probably 27, 25, 27. I'm
old
bad
enough
with
to be
women's
considered
ages.
old enough to be considered hot without being creepy. That's basically exactly what they did. That for Pocahontas, they did that for her.
No comment.
It's like Tyrion's comments later. She's objectively attractive. What? She's pleasing to look at. Men and women like her. Just digging that hole.
The last thing I want to say on this is, and this is a very, very insightful comment on my part, she would make an excellent wife for Pod when Pod becomes king.
Oh.
Pod for king?
Pod for king!
The actress is almost 37 years old, it looks like.
Now or at the time?
Wow.
That would have been...
Now.
How old?
Actress is about 37.
This came out in 2013, so about 10 years ago.
Oh, 30 years. She'd been 30 years old.
Playing a 14-year-old. But as with everything Game of Thrones, they're all
aged her up.
Aged it up.
18.
Even still, I don't know. I think they chose the perfect actor for her. She does a great job.
Yes.
Better than Daenerys? Do you think she's better cast than as someone who's supposed to be playing young than Daenerys?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No, I think Daenerys plays a much better younger psycho woman.
You can't imagine, similar to Tyrion, you could never imagine another actor inhabiting that character.
Yeah.
So, yes. Thumbs up. Can I make her my second favorite character right behind Joffrey?
Oh, you can't include her with Joffrey.
The power couple.
Daenerys number 5. There's probably three more reliable people in front of her behind Joffrey.
Your favorite characters, Gary. You can have them whatever you want.
No, he cannot. He cannot have her as a...
Oh, but
No.
you're cool with him having Joffrey as his favorite.
Yeah, that's very very.
What's next? Any other questions?
I think did Steven have any more questions?
Oh, that was a big long thing for me, so I'm good.
All right, Nick.
Do we? Sorry, I was gonna say, do we jump from there into the interaction with Tywin and Tyrion? Isn't that next?
We can if you want.
When Tyrion's before that, as I have my chronology, but we can talk about that.
You're fine. You go with your next point then, Gary. I had some notes on that exchange because that was really juicy.
I had notes on that exchange too. The bonus question going back to the beginning of the episode was, is the headless man anyone who has a name? Or is it just a guy?
I don't think
Just
so.
a girl.
Just a guy.
Just a miscellaneous headless dude holding their head like a baby.
As you do.
So.
Yes. As
Anyway.
you do, exactly.
Nick, you can jump to the Tyrion-Tywin conversation.
There's well, the preface to that is Cersei shows up with armed Kingsguards to Tyrion's chambers, and he's moved out of the basement, but he's still in a much smaller room. And she comments, definitely different chambers than the chamber of the hand that you used to have. And he's got all these concerns about who tried to kill him, who gave that order. And he points out again, it wasn't some random person. He didn't get sliced at the Battle of the Blackwater. It was by an enemy or a rebel or someone in the Stannis army. It was one of the Kingsguard, somebody who was supposed to be on his side, helping him out, his hand. And so he definitely doesn't trust anyone. Most of all, Cersei, just because she is who she is. And that exchange again with them, I thought was really telling. How there's a really good line in there where she says, "You're not half as clever as you think," and he says, "That still makes me cleverer than you." And that's so very true. Again, I go back to people knowing how to play the game. These two are very masterful about it. And there's this little sort of wise, witty nitpicking between the two of them, but they're both trying to find out what the other one knows. Like Tyrion's trying to find out if Cersei, in fact, tried to have him killed, and Cersei's wondering what he's going to ask Father. And yeah, anyways, that scene, which we can talk about that as well then if we need to, but the scene from there springboards into Tywin goes in to talk to Tyrion goes in to talk to Tywin, and we're kind of wondering what he's after, what his ploy is. And I think thus far we've seen a very reserved Tywin. He's got a couple one-liners that show he's got a quick, fast wit, and he's fierce when he needs to be. But he's rarely shouted, rarely said anything threatening outright. He's got a threatening stance, a threatening persona, but he's never outright threatened anyone. And in that scene, Tyrion kind of pokes the bear. It's well, I can't have Hand of the King anymore, so give me the Westerlands and Casterly Rock. And it's I didn't remember that was what he asked for in that scene. And when I heard it, I was like, that's not going to fly. Of course Tywin's going to shoot him down, and hard. And the fierceness that comes from his comments, is and I'll be eaten by maggots before I make a mockery of who I am and give you Casterly Rock. I thought that was just whoa. I'm out swinging.
I was super confused to why he even... Oh, I'm sorry. But I was super confused why he even asked for that. Tyrion is such an adept and smart political player. Why would you ask for something obviously you're not going to get?
Put all his cards on the table right off the bat, and it's no.
I can see why he thinks he's entitled to it, because Jaime's in the Kingsguard. He can't have any property. He can't be a lord of anything. And Cersei is female, and so she can't. On the other hand, he knew his father. There was no way that was going to go over well.
Right.
I took it on the rewatch and sometimes on the initial watches. Sometimes when you're talking as a child, talking to a parent, sometimes you just gotta float an idea out there. Just float it out there. Just oh, well, this would be nice. I would kind of sort of like to be the Lord of Casterly Rock, but ultimately, whatever. And as you said, I think we're undervaluing how much he felt that he was a hero, which is I for somebody in his situation, I'm sure he was super proud of himself because when he imagined his life, he assumed he was going to get killed for being a smartass long before he was going to take an axe to the face.
Mhm.
Like he surprised. I think he surprised himself when he was like trying to manipulate the battle and make the best battle plan based on the books. Like, and then at some point he's just like, shit, like I need, like, I know what we need right now is we need somebody to run out there and like lead the charge. And he didn't believe he could do that. And he did that. He was super proud. And so in that regard, he held himself to such a high, like he sort of felt like he was the same level as his brother, the Kingslayer. Like, and I think Tywin lays a line on him. I can't remember what it's about like, that's the expectation. Like, what the fuck? Like, sort of belittling. But honestly, I think he sort of realizes where all the chess pieces are on the board, and like in his mind, they've secured the kingdom, like, and so he just wants to get the fuck out of like the capital and go back to Castle Rock and be happy, live out his days, drinking and whoring himself to death. And in the exchange, Tywin also, I don't know, he sort of bends. I think maybe Tyrion is playing the, like, bid high and bargain middle, which is like, because Tywin says, like, okay, like, you do have some points, like, this is not really, we need to at least publicly portray you as someone who deserves some respect because you're still a Lannister. Like, we need to, and basically he says, like, you just need to play your part. You need to go back to playing your part. And if you play your part, we'll marry you. Like, we can marry you to someone worthy of your status as the, like, third level Lannister. Like he still has value as a Lannister to make some sort of deal, but he's not the best chess piece on the board. That's how I saw it. I mean, it was a good scene, as I think my only note on this otherwise was like it was a defining moment in understanding Tywin, who had very little screen time before this. It's more and more to Nick.
That comparison was something too that really stood out to me, and like you said, understanding Tywin. When we first meet Tywin, he's carving up the stag in the tent out on the field of battle, and he's talking to Tyrion, and he's like, "You're my son. You know, I care about you in the sense that I want to make sure you're all right. You're mouthy and belligerent, but you're my son. You're a Lannister." Now, compare that to this conversation where he yells at him and says, "It's a mockery to watch you," he says, like, waffle about back and forth the castle with that lion, with my father's lion sigil, he says, on your chest, simply because I cannot prove you're not mine. Right? And it's like, dang. Like I said, those are some harsh words. And just my takeaway from that is we kind of see who he is. And like I said, I thought that this was really a very telling scene for him, that he is how he really feels about who his kids are and how it reflects upon him.
I guess my big thing there is I didn't see him give any give on that conversation, Tywin. I didn't see any. He laid out exactly what it is. Maybe he hadn't done that as black and white in the past, but he did exactly what it was. And it was, you act good, you will get a wife. You will get a title. You will get a position worthy of your skills. That is what you're going to get. Black and white, here's what it is. Don't be asking for anything more. Don't be wanting anything more. It is not yours. And I think that's always been the case. I think that's always been something. He wouldn't have been appointed hand of the king in the temporary absence of Tywin if that, I guess, skill set hadn't been appreciated. So I I go back to my original statement. I am befuddled as to what Tyrion thought he was going to accomplish, and maybe it was just a father-son moment where, Daddy, why don't you love me? Because you're a bastard and I hate you. And maybe that's all it is. But
At this point, Tywin's still trying to live up to his legacy, and he wants to make a great house, and he doesn't see how Tyrion fits into that. And even though he did save King's Landing, like, that will never be told to anyone, and so he just needs... Tywin is still trying to write the history for the storybooks. And Tyrion's not gonna... Tyrion will be completely written out of the history of the Lannisters, if possible.
who's Tyrion?
Yeah. Anyway. Anybody else have anything on that? Tywin Tyrion fun?
I think you guys covered it well enough for my point here. Do you have anything else to talk about there, Nick? Or
No, that was it for me
all right.
on that point.
Anything else to discuss about the episode, though?
We go to Daenerys. She's arrived at Astapor.
Yeah.
And the Unsullied.
She's looking at the Unsullied, which are incredibly trained, incredibly loyal, and unafraid of death. They're going through a translator, I notice.
This is the first time we meet Miss Sunday.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
They're
so
going
many
through the
great
translator, Missandei.
Miss Sunday. So many great characters. Yeah.
Right?
Also, on a
More
rewatch,
interesting than John for sure.
something that's revealed in a later episode, but at this point only the audience knows is what that guy's saying. Something's revealed in a later episode that some people can fucking like can understand that language he's speaking, other than the translator.
I picked up on that too, Gary. I don't want to spoil anything, but knowing that reveal, she cringes as he talks.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really interesting too. Like, I don't know if I caught that the first time watching it, rather than just hearing her react to Missandei speaking in like the common tongue or English or whatever you want to call it. But when he's speaking, his name is like Kranzis or something like that. A K and a couple weird Y's. I had the subtitles on. When he is speaking, she's cringing as he's talking. Like, she can catch some parts of what's going on there.
Is the nippleless guy, is he a main character later on? I didn't know if you see any of the, not even trying to spoil anything, anyone who has a name or a face later on in the show. I think they're just extras, just half-loads of extras.
That was a pretty, I will say, that was a pretty intense scene to watch, even the second time around. I remember watching it the first time around, and just like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, that they don't need them, or why would you have them on there, and just go ahead and they comment later on, that he mutilates them to make a point. And it's like, ugh. And they talk about how even though Daenerys is intentionally buying them to be bred in battle and used as cattle, essentially, you know, she would never do that. She says that they both comment that they would give them good lodging and take care of them. They wouldn't be slaves per se. And so, yeah, it's already like we should do this not only for our own aims and be selfish, but just because we cannot leave them with this monster.
Right. Well, and I also think it's interesting that she apparently appears to only have two choices: to buy them or to not buy them.
Right. Right.
Then shortly thereafter, while they're having this conversation with her and Jorah, there's an assassination attempt here.
Yeah, little warlock gal comes back, and I don't remember the warlocks being referenced strongly. I remember the weird like guy who was in Karth, and I remember that was kind of it. But I didn't remember that he represented a greater group of warlocks. And I even thought for a brief second when the little girl kind of showed her face as, you know, like on the Bilbo Baggins Frodo reference again, bringing back in Lord of the Rings references, that her face almost looked like his. I thought for a second, like, was that him, sort of? And I was, oh, no, it's just she looks like a warlock of some sort. Yeah.
Shaking his head like maybe that was a spoiler. I had the similar question as to who the fuck this little girl was.
She's
Like-
one of the warlocks, or a apparition on behalf of the warlocks, mayhaps.
I thought maybe she was a one of the spies. Oh, what the hell are the little birds?
Spiders, little bird,
Fighters.
spiders, little birds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely put a pin in the warlock having a big impact on the story throughout the rest of the show's run there, for sure.
Guys, massive.
However, she is saved from that assassination attempt. Turns out to be by a person who turns out to be Sir Barristan Selmy, who we haven't seen since Joffrey exiled him after Robert Baratheon's death.
Mm-hmm.
What season is that in? Like I had a note of that. Like was that season 1?
I think it was
Like-
one still.
Yeah, I
Is it
think
Ned
so.
is
Like it was after
killed
Robert's
in
death. Then wasn't-
Episode-
Oh, yeah. So it would have been
Didn't
2.
Joffrey dismiss him because you let my father die?
Yeah.
Are you sure it's
I
not
think it was
season
still
1?
one, because you get
I
a
thought it was
picture
season
of
one.
the
It was
Hound in the gold
Yeah.
cloak's armor then,
Oh.
So,
which only
Um,
lasts for that season.
Joffrey doesn't exile him. He
Oh,
dishonors him because he just says you're too old to be my guard or something like that. He says, and the
Kingsguard
Barristan's
served
like,
for life.
yeah, and he draws his sword and he's like, even now I could cut through the lot of you, and you can tell that they're all terrified. They think he could.
Hold it right, Nick. Cut you to ribbons.
Yeah, and then he says, I'm out of here, and just turns and leaves, and nobody stops him. If he leaves of his own free accord, he would have just been, released because he's too old or whatever.
Right, what did he say? Something about people a castle to die in and people to bury me. They were gonna give him
Yeah.
a place to stay.
Exactly.
So,
Oh,
looks like he's been looking for someone else. So he offers
dog.
to serve Daenerys' Queen's Guard.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Anyway,
is that the end of it?
That was a note that I made, was like, it'd been over a whole season since you'd seen Barristan Selmy. Like,
I didn't.
one
The
more
first time I ever
here.
watched it, yeah, I didn't recognize the guy. This time I knew, but first time I ever
'Cause he
watched it, I
goes
was
from
like,
pretty-
who is this?
Goes from pretty clean shaven to like, I think of this to like a dude with a beard who looks like
Mhm.
fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Help me, Sebastian. You're my only hope.
One last thing I wanted to touch on, if everyone else was done with the episode here, was I referred to it as the butchering at Harrenhal. There, basically, when Robb
Ooh,
Stark's
yeah.
army arrives at Harrenhal, the new owners of Harrenhal this time. Basically, the Mountain and his men have fled the castle there. Basically, they've abandoned it, and they butchered everybody who was still there, except for Qyburn. We learn this character is alive there, but everyone else has been butchered, and it's not so much this I want to touch on. It's the interaction between Robb and his mother that takes place at the castle there. You can see both of them are greatly mourning this terrible tragedy that's happened there, but then you start to catch Robb looking around and seeing the looks of all his men basically kind of staring at him, trying to help his mother, and then he kind of just snaps back into place and goes, find some place to turn into a cell for her or something like that. So
I think isn't the body that they kind of focus on there, her mother or her father was captured.
nope, it's her father's bannerman.
Her father's bannerman. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the butcher at Harrenhal, is that the Tarleys
Yeah,
are
Tarly.
holding Harrenhal
Tully.
because Tullys. The Tullys are holding Harrenhal because the Mountain left Harrenhal.
No, they just ride into Harrenhal. Basically, they were going to originally lay siege to Harrenhal because they thought the Mountain was still there, but Robb was like, "No, there's not going to be any battle today here." Basically, because they saw all the bodies hung at the entrance to Harrenhal there, and then it's just them marching into Harrenhal and walking around and seeing all the bodies laid out, bodies of men and horses laid out all over the place.
So was this supposed to be like after you saw Arya there that all these people came and got butchered?
Yeah.
They got out just in time.
There were people who were just like in the stockyard, like we saw Hot Pie trying to do the stare down with the guy. All these people were just prisoners in Harrenhal who were caught bannermen for River Run or for the Starks and whatnot. And then when they just decided, all right, we're not going to hold this area anymore. We know Rob's coming to Harrenhal. They just up and left, but before they left, they butchered all of their prisoners, and so that's why we just see people lying around everywhere.
No,
Peter Baelish has a lot of cleaning up to do at his new castle.
Yeah. I actually question the wisdom of not just the ethics, but the wisdom of actually killing all those people there. Because, I mean, sure, it's a brutal scene, and you walk in on a lot of bodies, and now you have to bury them, and it shows how horrible the Mountain is. And he is a horrible, horrible human being. But if you had left them all just alive, now Rob has to feed and house them and take care of them. Like it's a strain on his supply lines. I would say that it would honestly do him more good to have just kept them all alive.
Interesting.
I would say probably though it's the weight between the psychological warfare of this big atrocity of just slaughtering all these soldiers versus we're going to leave all these soldiers alive for you to have basically strengthened your army again.
Fair.
But yeah, that's it for episode 1 then. So we can move on now into episode 2, Dark Wings, Dark Words. And according to the synopsis here, Bran and company meet Jojen and Mara Reed, Arya, Gendry, and Hot Pie. Mira. Yep, thank you. Arya, Gendry, and Hot Pie meet the Brotherhood. Jaime travels through the wilderness with Brienne. Sansa confesses her true feelings about Joffrey to Marjorie. I am going to just kind of start my part off here with we find out Theon is still alive here, and he is basically not going to have a good time for a while, it seems like. Although that janitor guy there at the end, he seems pretty helpful and friendly there, so yeah, I'm curious what he's going to do to help out Theon.
Yeah, Theon's situation really reeks right now, and I'm pretty sure that other guy's going to help him out.
I think it's interesting.
Character, the janitor.
I love rewatching these episodes to see the introduction for all these characters. Because certainly we and probably many people who have seen these episodes before know these faces, but like hearing how they're introduced again, it's kind of just like takes me back. That it's like, dang, like you get that feeling in your stomach, like oh crap, like you said, he's not gonna have a great day. We don't. Maybe he's gonna help him out. Maybe he's not. Who is this random guy? Because clearly other people are just torturing him. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops, but right now we're kind of like Theon. We don't know what the heck's going on. He's asking where he is. He's asking who these people are. Nobody's wearing a sigil or making references to their allegiance, so we just know nothing. Really quick question, and then I'll be quiet. We don't have to go into it, but do we find out Sir Davos is alive in this episode or the last one?
It was the last episode.
Last one.
Okay, yeah, that was interesting too. That Sir Davos is alive, and his conversation when he's brought aboard with Beladar Sam was really good too. So that's all we need to say about that, really, unless anyone has any conversations about it. But that was good. Very telling about how true he actually is to Stannis.
I wanted to make one mention about this because I'm sure we'll talk about this scene a little later, but we are introduced to the famous Queen of Thorns as well this episode, which is absolutely a treat there.
Yeah.
Amanda, throw it over to you. What do you got for us?
Well, you started it by talking about the Queen of Thorns. I just loved the interaction between them. As they're sitting there, she has Marjorie and she has Sansa, and they come to I don't know, tea outside, basically. And Sansa is just... Everything the Queen of Thorns says is amazing for us as the viewers to watch. It was just great. But Sansa, they're asking her about Joffrey. They're asking her about I've heard tales. Is there any truth to them? Has he mistreated you as you ripped out your tongue? What do you say to that? She has just learned to not trust anybody. And they're like, oh, well, you can trust us. And she's like, did I? And Marjorie and the Queen of Thorns, like Olenna Tyrell, they both do a really good job of, in such a short amount of time, like, being brutally, openly honest and being like, you can trust us, tell us whatever you want, I just need to know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Marjorie still keeps her cards close to the vest. I think in that scene, she still plays the innocent. She's like, oh, really?
It's kind of like
can't
almost
believe
a good cop, bad cop kind of thing of like, Olenna is constantly like pushing Sansa to provide some information, whereas Marjorie's like, oh, she's so distrustful of us. She doesn't know she's been so abused by the situation and everything like that. Just leave her be, grandmother.
I don't know. I feel
good cop, bad cop.
I disagree with that a little bit. I think that Marjorie's guard is down. She's the comments she makes are that she's aware of what's going on. From the previous episode where we kind of see her talking to the children and your dad's a hero and that kind of mentality, I think is different than this, where I want the truth. And you can talk to us. Please come, let's be good friends. I don't think that's as much guarded as it is she's more open and candid with Sansa, or at least looking for that.
Right. And I don't think
both
she's
have heard rumors. They both have had rumors about Joffrey, but they want more concrete evidence. Sorry, you were saying.
No, you're fine. It's just, yeah, they want the information about Joffrey, but I also think it's their chance of figuring out who Sansa is, too, because they've heard about her. Is she actually the sweet little innocent girl with the traitor father that they've heard of?
Mm-hmm.
And if she is, what does that mean for them?
Right. We
So
talked in the beginning. Sorry, you go ahead, Steve.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I don't think she's really playing at being kind of a sweet, innocent girl, per se. I think she is devious. I think she is clever. I think she is smart. But I think that all plays with a generally and honestly good nature. It's one of those things where if you practice how you play, and she is going to be a good person and practice at being a good person at all times, specifically because that helps her out going forward. And that means, to me at least, it's not really a play that she's putting on. She's not letting her guard down. She's not letting her guard down. She's being who she is. And who she is a very nice, congenial, smart, clever, and
My
devious
sweet
person.
summer child. I think it's possible to be very manipulative and yet still a good person. You could want the right things while totally... Yeah, but, I mean, you did it in a way that says that you want to be on your knees in front of her saying, please, I'll serve you, my queen.
I was kind of thinking when watching this episode, I was like, if I was Sansa and I'd been in the situation where I don't know if I would trust these two people I don't know, right? It could just be another ploy where maybe Joffrey's hired them, tell me all the terrible things you think I'm capable of, and then they go and tell him and she gets her head knocked off. I was thinking to myself, I don't know if I would be open with her, but again, it speaks to Sansa's honest care and concern, a little bit of fear, but her concern for other people, that she speaks out about it. It's this emotional turmoil where she says, he's a monster, like he is terrifying. But then at the same time, she also fears his repercussion and says, please don't call off the wedding. You know, it's this, I want to have this dutiful view where people see that I have not said anything poor. There's no reason to stop. Everything's fine. Keep the wedding going. But she is like dead-eyed staring at them when she says he is a monster. He's not a good person. And Olenna just kind of like takes it in stride. Like, you can be honest with us. And I think that she seems to be honest about that too. I don't think she's being duplicitous. But when that's said, she's like, that's a pity. Like, I think that in that moment, she's already remanded herself to say, I'm going to have to step in and do something about him then. That was kind of the mentality I had in my mind. It wasn't like, well, all right, well, that's good to know. Okay, we'll take that in stride. I think right then and there, she already seems, the way she was talking about her husband, her late husband, and the way she was talking about her son, who's currently the Lord of Highgarden, like, I don't think she's willing to play around with the politics, like what Steven was talking about earlier, of men, and what, like, just leaving her and her grandchildren's fate up to whatever may come. Like, she wants to know. I think she even has a line in there too before Sansa breaks, where she asks, is he a good person? Is he kind? Like, well, just like any parent or grandparent, who is my child marrying? What kind of a person are they? I think that she's actually looking for the truth there. And when she hears it, she's like, all right, I'm going to have to do something about that. I'm going to have to look into that, not just like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. It's more of a good to know kind of thought was what I took away from it. Did you all hear anything else in that conversation?
Real quick, I did when the exact thing when you said that she was, that Thorns was giving a oh my gosh sort of look. I think you also saw Marjorie just give a kind of nod. And sorry, I was nodding for everyone that can't see me. When Joffrey says he's a monster, and she's already kind of knows, and it doesn't look like she's super 100% worried about this. Just like, God, another one sort of thing. Sorry, Gary, I interrupted you though.
Okay, going on to Steven's point, like the Queen of Thorns obviously doesn't think very highly of men. So on that point, I think she's really just trying to size up what kind of shitty dude is going to be the next line of men that's married into her family, based on your point, Steven. Bonus, crazy devil's advocate. Okay, if you rethink of the scene as Sansa being the enemy, or if they go into that conversation sizing up Sansa as if she's a Lannister, like a Cersei level, like person playing the Game of Thrones. So they have to go into that, sort of size up Sansa, sort of figure out like, okay, like this girl, if she has the goal of like, I want to be queen, even if my dad was a traitor, like I'm just gonna be the motherfucking queen. Like, she's a piece on the chessboard that needs to be moved out of the way. Like, so anyway, that's just my interesting devil's advocate as I've been thinking about this, is like, imagine that they think that Sansa is a threat. Like, is that how they're approaching this conversation? Is they need to break her down and like see where she's at on the chessboard of, ruling the land, and similar to Tywin, what's the Queen of Thorns also at some level is wanting to maintain the honor of their family. Like, so anyway, that was just a random thought about like, what if they think of Sansa as the threat, not as a little bird to chirp to them, just like she's the threat.
I don't think that that's devil's advocate, Gary. I can get behind you on that. They've never met her. Sansa hasn't had any interaction with the Tyrells to this point. So yeah, when they meet her, is she going to be like Cersei, or play just like, oh well, no, he's great, and kind of come off with this sort of bravado that everything's going well? Because yeah, no, very, very true. It's a very insightful thought. Marjorie displaced the current queen to be in Sansa. So yeah, absolutely. If she's spiteful or sees that as she wanted to have the aspirations of being queen, then yeah, she's a totally dangerous threat. So that's very insightful.
Also, like, the Queen of Thorns is by far one of the best characters.
Freaking badass. Yes.
Like,
very.
Just like, I think it's just. I think it's because she's such a 180 from everything else you've seen in King's Landing, which is, people who don't play the games of court. Like, she's too fucking old to care. Like, worst case, somebody's gonna stab her. Like, who the hell? She doesn't care. But she's just blunt and honest of like, I need to know what the fuck what's going on. Like, you need to give us as much intel as possible. Like, I don't. And she, interestingly enough, she shoos away a servant during the conversation, which I think might be her understanding that everyone could be a spy. Anyone could be a spy.
I think it's.
Sorry. I was just gonna say the only people present for that conversation, like Gary implied, is Marjorie, Queen of Thorns, Sansa. That is it. There's no one else.
There's a random servant bringing cheese.
They all shut up
The
when
cheese boy.
In the books, that scene I do remember too. Like they actually had quite a few people. She's always got a little army of smaller
Hens.
Tyrells and cousins and stuff running around. A bunch of girls. Or Elena at one point like calls from music and she's like, "Sing, I can't hear you. I'm old and I can't hear well. Sing louder, boy. I can't." It was made all this noise so that no matter what, like there was no way anyone else around them
Smart.
could hear them.
Smart.
Who was singing? I don't remember.
She
No one-
not in the show, but in the book.
Oh, okay.
So that making a big deal of the fact that she was safe to talk here, no one's possibly going to hear her and take her
Yeah.
words back to anyone.
Insightful.
Even if they're in the walls, they're not going to really hear past that racket.
It's interesting as we are introduced to these characters. I would make an argument that the Tyrells hold the most power of all the different families, even the king that we've seen right now. It's this weird sort of there's always a bigger fish mentality of like Cersei, do not screw around with Cersei. Well, even before that, Tyrion is hand of the king and save the city, but is displaced once Tywin comes back in. But Tywin has to obey whatever the Queen Mother, as far as like on paper, is. But the Queen Mother gets trumped by Joffrey. But now Joffrey's sort of just chasing the tails of Marjorie, who we see is not very shallow, actually has a lot of depth to her character and understanding of how to play the game. But really, like, she's rolled out this canon of a character in her grandmother who really is kind of like poised to pull the strings and what's really going on. Who's Joffrey really as a person? And it's this like, there's always someone who you think has a lot of power. Everyone has a lot at stake, but who has the power, who can make decisions like you were talking about, Gary, unabashedly without repercussions, you know? And I think that, yeah, right now the Tyrells kind of have that power. And like you were talking about earlier, Amanda, with how in the conversation in the previous episode at dinner, Joffrey kind of bashes his mom to make him sound better towards trying to impress Marjorie. It's interesting how that power dynamic changes.
I think a lot of that power comes from the fact that they're now kingmaker. I don't think it's so much that they have an innate power. I think that the Lannisters could roll over them. I think the Starks could roll over them for that matter. But what I think they have is the ability to ally with any side at this point and give that side the preponderance of power. Because they have the economy of I was about to call it high water, and it's not high water. What is it?
Highgarden.
They have the economy of Highgarden. They have and even if it's just a medium troop amount, the medium troop amount contributed with this larger troop body from the Lannisters. And that's what really gives them a lot of power, is the fact that they are kingmaker in this point in time. They're not playing for king, they're playing for kingmaker.
All right. Amanda, did you have anything else for us?
No, but I think it was a fascinating conversation in both the show and us.
Yeah.
Gary, what do you got?
In the early scenes, I did just a couple notes. In the early scenes, you see an older Bran, and he's walking. So obviously, I think it's probably public knowledge that the kids who play the younger two Starks get far too old far too quickly for how fast the story goes. So he's like he's gained a couple years since like you last saw him. And also in that scene, he shoots the three-eyed raven and you hear dialogue, and all of the dialogue is a flashback to the first episode. It is like word for word audio of like Bran trying to shoot the target in the first episode, and it's like, were you a marksman at 10? And all this, like all of these flashbacks of all of his family, and you know, like, and so I thought that was an interesting, callback, like just fan service, I guess. Like, I don't know if anyone else has any theories on that, but the other thing in this episode is Catelyn talks about the one time she thought about like making Jon Snow a full-fledged Stark, and it's a very like character revealing scene because it sort of pays off this like on a something you only catch on a rewatch is that every time that those two look at one another when they're in the same room, there's just absolute. Well, I don't think it's absolute disdain from Jon to Catelyn, but Catelyn just absolutely disdains everything about Jon Snow, everything he represents. Like he is a stain on her honor. Like
no. Ned's honor.
Would you say that? Would you say that she treats Jon the same way that Tywin treats Tyrion?
Ooh.
Bastard.
Comparison.
Call back. All imps are bastards in the eyes of their fathers.
Nah.
All dwarves.
Oh, it's all dwarfs. Yes.
I think she very much treats him the same way.
And I don't know. I thought it was a good scene, and on a first watch, if you were like not paying attention, like it's a scene that goes by and it just seems like more just dialogue, but it's a really deep character defining conversation that sort of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And also as you're listening to that scene, there's sort of this like the way on the rewatch, the way I understood it is like Catelyn takes credit for all of the bad things that have happened because she defied the gods. She made a promise to the gods that like if he made it through the night, like I was gonna like talk to Ned and he was gonna be put the end to this Jon Snow business and make him a legitimate Stark. And then she went back on her word. And she felt like all the bad that happened since then was her fault. Like the gods were punishing her. And I thought that was a real defining moment, but I think it wasn't an instantaneous because I think him getting the pox was like 10 or something. I don't remember what age they said he was at.
He was younger, yeah.
Younger, I think.
Pretty younger.
Also, not... One of the few times you can't call out poor writing is that as in her speech of telling the story, they reveal it really well, like a perfectly onion of like, oh yeah, one of my children, they got real sick. And then I don't remember how it gets revealed. I was like, oh, it was Jon Snow. And I'm sure this lady probably has heard the story of Jon Snow. I'm sure that it's not something talked about in public, but in private you might say like, oh, do you have any siblings? Oh, I have a bastard brother, and don't bring him up around my mom because she fucking hates him. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I had. And then she admitted that she wanted to forgive Jon Snow, but she never could. And it's just crazy. And here's a devil's advocate question: if Jon Snow was a full-blown Stark, would his story have changed?
Oh,
Heck
certainly
yeah.
he would have gone with Jon, or he would have gone with Robb.
He would have gone with Robb. Theon Greyjoy would have been the third in that organization because I think there's some conversations between Theon and Jon where Theon is a super huge dick to Jon. I think it's in the first episode where he's grabbing the direwolves. And it's you would never talk to, Jon Snow if he was a full-blown Stark like that.
Absolutely. This one's yours, Snow. We'll run to the letter or whatever.
I have a question also about that real quick, and that's just, does this make Catelyn better in your eyes at all? Because I'll be very honest, the fact that she is sitting here saying, oh, yeah, I wish I had been better to John. I wish that I had done this. And I'm sitting there going, but you weren't. But you're still a dick. Like,
Yeah, I'll basically echo exactly what you're saying there. Yeah, it's a human thing to have regret about the stuff that you've done in your life, but you were still a bad person to commit those things in your life there. I mean, her resentment towards John basically changed like the whole family dynamic there for John growing up to kind of feel like he was always the literal black sheep of the family there, and Ned having to kind of like, bring John with because John was part of the family. It's like, no, John's part of the family. He has to be here and stuff like that. So her actions basically just changed the entire dynamic of the Stark family for sure. So I don't think she's redeemed in any kind of way with her regret there. It would be the start of a redemption thing of her saying, I feel bad about this, and then her trying to go about maybe fixing it or doing some repair going forward. But as it stands right now, no.
I'd say it's a nice little humanizing moment for her, but at the same time,
Yes.
she made this choice again and again and again every day. And by the way, there was nothing in it for, like, there was no profit for it. She literally just hated this kid. It didn't help anything. If anything, it made everything worse. It made a home life worse.
Right.
And worse, to me at least, when she's telling Talisa all this, she didn't feel bad about this until now. Like, after all this stuff's happening to her, she's like, oh, this is why, because I was a bad person. I'm like, you knew it the entire time. If you don't regret it until bad stuff is happening to you, you're not really regretting being a bad person. You're regretting that bad stuff's happening to you still.
Consequences,
yes.
yep.
Yes, you're regretting the consequences. You're not regretting what you did wrong.
But on a different side of the conversation, I think it's supposed to play as a connecting thread between Talisa. I don't know. Persons' names who are never said.
It definitely has another layer to it of it trying to, again, humanize her a little bit more and kind of maybe make a connection with her and Rob's wife. It is Talisa, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, trying to make that connection between those two characters there who both have the shared interest of loving Rob there.
Talisa tries to come up and she's trying to
Common ground.
she's trying to build a relationship with this mother-in-law that she now has, and Catelyn's response is like, you can't help. And then she has to give her a second to be like, oh, she has no fucking idea why she can't help. Oh, it's because only a mother can do this. Oh, okay. Weird fucking customs that no one ever knew about. Okay, cool. That explains it. And now we're going to go into a very one-off story that never gets referenced again.
But to the point that I think a couple people made too is it humanizes her. It gives a deeper understanding. I don't think, to answer Steven's original question, I agree. I don't think it redeems her, but it shows that she at least contemplated that she had a moment of empathy for John and what he actually is, an innocent boy, she calls him, in her house. He didn't do anything. He's just there looking for some parental help or comfort in his new home. And she felt bad. She ultimately didn't act on it, but she felt bad in that moment about it. And it humanizes her enough to see that she has weakness. She has doubts. She's not all family all the time, but she's also not hard all the time. And so ultimately, yes, we know hindsight, she doesn't act on that, and things played out the way they did. And now here we are. But it gives more understanding to the fact, that she didn't always shun him. She did one of these for John when he was sick, and she prayed for his safety, for him to be well and healed.
Also throw out there that, unlike John, Talisa had a little bit of a choice in marrying Rob. However, she's still, Catelyn's just doesn't care. She's gonna burn bridges with somebody, even though she's upset that Rob married her. Like,
Right.
He's doing the exact same thing again, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna have to live with this person.
Yeah. Consequences. Again, are you upset about what you did or your actions? Or are you upset that you got caught?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right, I think the original thing was still to Gary. Gary, you have anything else for us?
Pretty quiet, boring episodes. That's all I got.
Or writing, right, Gary?
Or writing.
Steven, what do you got? Do you have anything more for us?
I do. So the thing that really stood out for me here, and actually I'm going to pose a question to the group, is about the conversation actually that happens literally right before the conversation between Catelyn and whatever her name is. And that is Rickard Karstark and on the Rob on the ridge, and saying, "When are you angry? Do you think I'm doing something wrong?" And he says, "Do you know when I think you lost a war? As soon as you married that one," and points to Talisa walking down the path. And obviously, things just get from bad to worse with Rickard Karstark here. I guess I know everyone has thoughts on this, and my question overall for this as well is going to be, when do you think is Rickard Karstark right? Does this start going downhill with Talisa, or is it before that? What's going on here? Because he suffered a reverse of fortunes.
I have a really short thing. Can I say mine and be done?
You're number one, Nick, so go for it.
Okay. What was that again? Repeat what you just
You're
said.
number one in the order, so go for it.
Aemon Targaryen said it to John earlier. Love is the death of duty. I think it's the second his prerogative duty. The second his prerogative changed from revenge for what happened to Ned and going after the evil in the South. The second it changed to his prerogative is, hey, I'm now in love with this woman. She's distracting. His mind is not on the ball as far as these other families and other bannermen are concerned. I think that he loses the war the second that he starts focusing on Talisa and what's best for her, or what I should do, or throwing off allegiances. Yeah, I think it's when he falls in love. Go ahead, Tyler.
Gary's number two.
Okay, Gary.
Just saying that without spoilers, like, I think some of those conversations are trying to lead to bigger conflicts because nothing in this world ever turns out to be sunshine and rainbows. On the story with Lord Carl Stark and the Talisa, like, because she becomes a bigger character in the show. Surprise, surprise! When you marry a Stark, they become a bigger character. Like, she's not a one-off character that you hope would die like 30 seconds after she got on screen.
I mean, she's married to him now, so she actually has the Stark name. As far as this story goes, she has more prominence and power than Jon Snow, who is in the North, does.
That's actually a good point.
Just as whiny as Jon Snow, too.
Right? She's the queen in the North.
Queen of the North, I guess. She never ever refers to herself as a Stark, though, does she?
No.
She never is referred.
Once,
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, you could hardly, only on a rewatch could you ever get her fucking name, because it's never said more than maybe once or twice.
I think she says something to the effect of, she's till I married one of the grim barbarian lords or something like that. Yep. I think is all she says.
Yeah. Like,
anyway, so that's all I got.
Back to that scene there. Yeah. Like, that's definitely a somebody speaking truth to power there, basically, of like, hey, you're taking your eye off the ball here completely. And it's even mentioned too in the last episode, as they're taking Harrenhal, it's been quite a while since they've had any battle, so the men themselves are even probably starting to become a little, I don't know if it's unruly or uneasy with this or whatever, because they're just constantly trying to chase the Lannister army around there, which is doing nothing but wasting their time and then basically getting them farther and farther off the path that they originally were after. But it is definitely like, back to the point there, Lord Karstock can definitely probably see that they are losing focus of what they originally set off to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, granted though too, you have to be careful though. Like Lord Karstock, he wants strictly revenge. He wants the Kingslayer dead because of the Kingslayer killing his kids.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you can't go fight a war just for the single act of getting revenge on this one person. It's in this world, it's got to be the larger thing of. I mean, granted, they went to war to get revenge for the death of Ned there, or actually, it was originally to free Ned and the Stark girls. Then Ned died, so it changed slightly and everything like that. But there was still the larger thing of like we want to escape the rule of the Seven Kingdoms here, and it's that initial big bulletin board is slowly going farther and farther away.
I was gonna say, as you were talking about like that story kind of going off the war, it's also kind of reflected in the last time you saw a Stark any of the Stark army in battle was I think half a season ago.
It was when he met his wife.
Yeah, that's the last time you see him. So literally, it doesn't say that they're winning the war, but as you were saying, Carl Stark, his motivation in life is now. What did I say? Did I say something?
Carl Stark.
It's like every time we say the name, it gets more and more jacked up.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's
Carl
Karstark,
Stark,
but you
Carl
beautifully
Stark.
keep changing it, and we love it.
Karstark.
It's perfect. Just
Lord
keep going.
Karstark. Lord Karstark. His motivation is now to just find the Kingslayer, and where does that go? Is that he wants to send the army south because that's where anyone in the right mind knows that the Kingslayer's going. And instead of going there, we're taking this like honor detour to go like to a funeral. Like I feel like in his mind, like where should Robb be? Robb should be moving forward. We should be going to battle again. Send your mom off. Like she's your mom. Like ultimately, no one's gonna kill like the Queen Regent of the North. Like she's still in a place of honor. She's not. So I think even the people in the Northern Army who are really pissed at the Kingslayer, I don't think that they would raise a hand against Catelyn Stark because, first of all, she's the lady of the very honorable Ned Stark, whose honor has never been questioned. Second of all, she's the Queen Mother. So I think she's safe. So I think the right answer for everyone would have been just keep going south. Like, just keep grinding. Like, you're getting distracted from... And obviously they see the wife becoming distracted because I'm sure it's not new news that, like, he made a wartime promise to, like, and he broke it. And if the promise of marriage is pissed away, then what are the promises of bannermen worth? Like,
and so I kind of want to complicate the question a little bit now too. Do you think that, I mean, we all agree then, and I agree with you guys, that marrying Talisa was a horrible decision. It was an idiotic decision.
They're not even in the book. What a waste.
No, but one of the Lannisters is. But keep her off in a bedroom or something, whatever. But don't, this isn't the time, this isn't the place.
Anyone who's listening, Amanda has a very shocked look on her face. On the comment of, just lock her in a bedroom.
Keep your wife
That's
locked in
not
the bedroom.
something I
We're
should
with
be
you, Steven.
concerned about.
Okay, but what I was going to say is, but do you think this would actually be as big a problem if Catelyn hadn't done what she did with a Kingslayer? If she hadn't absolutely caused massive divisions in the camp? Because this is causing, misfocus, but... Oh, Nick really didn't like my comment. He jumped off. But it's causing less focus in the camp. It's not really causing divisions, though, per se. The divisions are caused by Catelyn.
Yes, it would depend if any percentage of their garrison are part of the Frey bannerman. If there's any members of the Freys that have joined the march... Like, I'm sure they're probably like, well, fuck, why are we even here? We promised a bridge and like that one of our siblings somewhere in the packing order of the Lords of the Bridge. They have a name for it.
Towers.
The Lords of the Towers.
Twin Towers. No, not Twin
yeah.
Towers. Not Twin Towers.
Towers. What are you guys talking about? We're going down a different road here.
Anyway, but
You're a
if the
wizard,
phrase
John.
if the bannermen of the phrase were part of the army, like they have no reason to stay anymore. Like I think in the book, like there are some Frey children, cousins, brothers that are up at King's Landing, not King's Landing, Winterfell with Bran and Rickon. I haven't gotten through the second book to see how that all goes to shit because I fell asleep.
I believe they sent 2 boys up there, yeah. And they also, in the book, they also pledged Arya to marry one of the Frey boys too.
Ooh, interesting.
Was it the Frey boys who were flayed alive in?
No, that was the
Winterfell boys.
Okay. I didn't know if it was. Yeah.
I mean, there's enough Freys you could flay a couple and no one would notice.
Cook a couple into a pie, no one will see a difference.
They weren't very nice boys, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, they were not nice, and I think going in a very deep rabbit hole is that they have the way they play has a lot more to do with like this weird line of succession where they brag about where they are in the line of succession for being the Lord of the Twins. It's just like, well, I'm number 6. Oh, but you're only number 12 in the line of succession. And it's just like, oh, okay. Because I don't remember in the book they explain how many children and bastards he has, but
yeah, it's something like 96 total, isn't it? I don't remember. Something insane. He's a lot of kids and a lot of grandkids and a lot of great grandkids.
Gross.
Prolific.
Yes. Anyway, that we can move on from the phrase.
So I think back to you, Steven, your original question your updated, amended question was what again? It was Catelyn releasing the Kingslayer.
If Catelyn hadn't released the Kingslayer, would this marriage be such a big deal? Because we all big deal, but is it such a big deal that it trumps what Catelyn did almost?
I think so, just because of the fact that he's alienated. He broke a pledge, and he's a king, so it doesn't matter what. You're gonna have people immediately. They're like, "Oh, he's an oath breaker, a word breaker, blah blah blah." 2, to one of his allies. He's already on, having issues with the Karstarks. He's having issues with the fact that he's carrying an army through a field with no purpose.
Yeah.
You can't hold a standing army with no purpose and no reason. Like, where are your supplies coming from? Where are you going? You have no reason. He's probably getting, like, people are probably deserting by the moment.
Yeah.
And then if he's alienated one of his bannermen, and maybe not the most powerful one, but one with a lot of connections, especially there, he's got at least one of them is a squire, I think, for him. He's supposed to marry one of them. Arya's supposed to marry one of them, as if they have any clue where she is.
I think at the time of that promise, Ned was still alive, so it was assumed that Arya was still alive. So at the time of the promise, Arya was in hand.
Not to claim that Gary made a good point, but Gary said something in his original part of his first answer there of he broke a promise to a bannerman, so all the rest of the bannermen are kind of basically like, well, what is the promise to me really worth then? And I think, Amanda, you kind of touched on this a little bit too there. Removing the fact that Catelyn released the Kingslayer there, it still eventually boils down to, he broke a promise he had made with one of his bannermen. So ultimately, what do our promises really mean towards this guy we call our king here?
I
It
think
hurts.
it's
Does
true.
it burn? Did it burn your tongue as it came out that you had to agree with me on something?
I'm gonna have to go
It hurt
throw
me.
some salt over my shoulder later and do a couple of Hail Marys.
Yeah, it hurt me over here, and I'm not nowhere near him.
Right. Well, and that was a really marriages are such a common one for them all to do. It was a really public one. They all knew about it. Like you couldn't have picked a bigger, more widely known promise to break, really.
Right.
I
And
think there
as
might
far
be
as they're concerned, it's because he saw some other hot girl and went off. What does that mean for them?
I mean, I think there might be like one more promise that you could break that would be kind of just as big as the marriage promise, but I'm not quite for sure on that. We might have to put a pin into that idea for later.
I think you guys are making jokes that I don't understand.
We'll tell you when you're older.
Steven, did you have anything more for us?
Are you going to touch on Jojen?
Georgian or Jojen?
He's a minor man. Don't touch him.
Ojin?
No, it's all yours. If
If you're not going to, then I want to. Okay.
It's all yours.
So one of the other things that happens is the Reeds are finally introduced to the story, and they are two of my favorite characters as well. Jojen and Mira Reed, who are just really cool characters that in the book, I believe they've already been with the Starks at this point. I believe they were actually at Winterfell Castle and escaped with them there. They were playmates from one of the Reeds, one of Stark's bannermen, but they Jojen has a power of foresight, and Mira Reed is just I don't want to say a Navy SEAL, because basically she'd have to write a book if she was a Navy SEAL. But just really, really cool two different people, and they end up basically taking them by surprise, sort of. Jojen goes up to Summer and as Summer's growling, giant direwolf. Jojen just walks and goes, "Oh, what a cute little puppy," and Summer's like, "Oh, yes, I am," and walks away. But they are going to play a huge part in this as well, and it's really neat to meet them again. It's really awesome to see them. I wish they had the moss green eyes that they're said to have, and I almost think they have green hair in the book, I want to say. Which is fine. I mean, whatever. But there's two really neat characters who were introduced.
Let's be honest. If you introduce somebody to me who knows nothing with moss green hair of like, these guys fucking goblins? Like, who the fuck are they?
I also liked when the Reeds show up, Osha senses something or somebody coming, and so she kind of ambushes Jojen, who in turn was like, "I'm unarmed," and she's like, "Well, that was poor planning." And he goes, "My sister carries weapons," who pops up right behind Osha and takes her. And Osha kind of needles them about that later on. She's like, shouldn't he be ashamed? Like, he needs you to protect him. Like, this boy needs a girl to protect him. And she asks, like, where's the shame in that? And Mira tells him, like, some people are always going to need help. That doesn't mean they're not worth helping.
Right.
Damn right. It's an awesome scene. I'm glad you brought
it. Yeah, anything else there, Steven?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. Nick, have you said your pieces yet for the episode, or?
I feel like there's another scene here towards the end of this episode. Is it that it ends with Theon's plight again, or do we end somewhere else?
Nope.
There's a whole bunch about Arya, maybe.
Yep. There's a little bit
kind of
about
middle.
Arya there.
That's where it ends. Yep, it was back with Arya and them.
It ends with Jaime and Brienne on the bridge.
That's right. That's what it is. So I'll do the little bit there about the Brotherhood of Banners. We're kind of introduced to Thoros of Myr. I think Thoros of Myr is his name, and a couple of his friends there. And yeah, they don't really belong to anyone. They say the lords of Westeros are trying to destroy everything. They're trying to save the common folk. And so it's interesting because we've talked about all these different really powerful families and people who have a lot of pull, both political and strength of arms with even all the Northmen. But the Bannerhood just seems to be like these kind of 12 or 8 folks who are just wandering the woods by themselves. And yeah, it's like, well, what are these people going to be able to do? So once again, Arya is kind of pulled into this. She's like beheld to these people who are just bigger and stronger than she is. And she's kind of like, oh, dang it, here we go again. You know, I can't go anywhere without people thinking that I'm just some wanderer in the woods. Is all I'm trying to do is get back to my family. I was curious when we're watching this, did any of the rest of you think it would have been better for them not to fight? Because clearly the archer, Argai or whatever his name was, and Thoros had the jump on them and were much better skilled. Do you think it would have been better if they had tried to get away? Like, if they had, let's just say devil's advocate, if they had gotten away somehow, you know, like who's behind the wall, and they just take off running and get away, would they have been better off? Or is it better to try and find strength in arms with these people who seem to be sort of reluctant allies right now?
Or at least people who won't like hurt some teenagers just cause.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's, I think, given the number of possibilities out there, I think being with a armed contingent who isn't immediately set on putting a rat in your stomach, positive.
Well, I mean, because she's trying to get back home, she might have been able to just take off straight away and keep going at the pace she was going to get back to Rob or get back north and try and find John at the wall.
They
But
were
we've
a
already seen
teensy
that in
bit
some of
lost, though, too.
Sure,
They,
but
like-
we've also seen that some of the Stark soldiers aren't all that trustworthy.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. They
So,
lay
I
with
mean,
lions or whatever.
Even if they get to the pickets of the Stark lines, who's to say they're getting through?
Sure. This random, you know, gal, kid, child says that they know you. Yeah. I thought it was interesting that once again she's kind of pulled into another group's agenda.
Yeah.
It's like I'm now serving Tywin Lannister drink and food for his men. All right, now I'm working with Thoros of Myr. It's like she doesn't really get much of a say as far as where they're going. I think, with the exception of this little snippet in this episode, pretty much since she came to King's Landing, you know, she's with the people who are going north of the wall and Gendry's group, and then they're stuck in Harrenhal, and it's like the only time they've been able to kind of wander at their own free will, like we said, even though they end up lost. It's just this like 5 seconds we see them in the forest. Just struck me as interesting.
Question for you, Nick.
Yeah.
That group, the Brotherhood Without Banners, freedom fighters or terrorists?
Ooh, I like a good morality question. It depends on perspective. I mean, you know, this is the Batman question we mentioned earlier. You know, from their perspective, they're the heroes, you know, right? They're the liberators trying to fight off the oppressors for the common folk, doing the greater good. But, you know, history is written by the winners. I'd say there's more written publication or posted notices to watch out for the thieves in the forest who are going to attack you and plunder you. I don't know. It's in the eye of the beholder. Very good question.
Do you have anything else, Nick?
Say that they're not very well fleshed out, especially at this point. Like, you hear about them as they're poorly written.
Poorly written.
Fuck
Gary-
you all. They're poorly written.
Gary wants everything right away. As soon as the characters are introduced, they have to be full detailed backstory and everything like that. Here's my details here.
They're not as detailed as Karl Marx,
Ooh.
whatever his name is.
Carl.
I like how we now we're just completely off that Karl Marx now.
Name it all.
Do you have anything else, Nick?
you're such a silly-
Oh, I didn't. I thought that was another interesting
All right.
interaction.
My final closing point is to touch on Marjorie again here. So the past 2 episodes, she's had great interactions of kind of with different characters, of the dinner with Cersei and Sansa, and Loras and all. No, actually, no. Sansa wasn't at that one, but it was like Loras and all of that, and then her interaction with the people of Flea Bottom, and then her interaction with Sansa with her grandmother. The one I wanted to touch on was her interaction with Joffrey there in Joffrey's room there, where Joffrey is showing off his crossbow. No air quotes involved in that one.
Is that what the kids are calling
Here's
it
how
nowadays?
you cock it.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, I think this goes on to show a little bit more of Marjorie is definitely playing the game here in her own way.
Playing him like a fiddle.
But yeah, she knows Joffrey is not a good person there. Now officially confirmed by Sansa, basically. So now she's trying to figure out what can she do to kind of get in to Joffrey and kind of manipulate him to kind of get him away from his mother a little bit more. Because I think that happens right after that. Sorry, that was the last episode there where you could kind of see Cersei's distrust or hatred for Marjorie starting to grow in the last episode, and now this is more of Marjorie trying to basically worm her way into Joffrey and kind of pulling him away from Cersei. So I'm just going to kind of ask here, did Marjorie play her part right there?
With T.
I think she played the innocent card again. She's like, oh, well, what's that? It's a crossbow? I would love to go hunting you. Oh, dearie my. I understand it's not appropriate for the queen to go hunting. And then he's like, oh, well, you're the fucking queen. You can go hunting me any other time. You want to see my crossbow?
That sounds terribly dirty when Gary says it.
I'm dirty when anyone say it.
Sorry.
No, I'll be honest. I think, yeah, she's playing him like a fiddle, but I think that she's playing him exactly how she knows it's going to work. Because what does he want to do? He wants to show off. He wants to be able to to be the man and to be able to show off how his cool little things that people might not understand, like his sadistic side.
Yes.
Look at weapon works. It's so cool. Blah blah blah. And then she's like, "Yeah, look how that weapon works. You're so cool for having such a cool weapon." Sorry.
Do you think I could kill something? Would you like to watch me kill something?
Mm-hmm.
That's like serial murder talk right there.
But she's taking the information she has and she's
Right.
sort of seeing what. But it also sort of brings to light, as you talk about like manipulating Joffrey and how his mother is losing grasp on Joffrey, is that Joffrey doesn't play the Game of Thrones. Joffrey doesn't play the games of court. So he's susceptible to flattery. Like, he's susceptible to like this holier than thou mentality. He doesn't ever believe that people could come at him with their own agendas. He just believes that what he knows is right. And if somebody says something that benefits them and it benefits me, who cares? Like, so because he doesn't play the Game of Thrones, he's so susceptible. And he's so young. And she's so hot.
I think she's quite warm-blooded.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that shows in this season is this episode is actually just Joffrey pulling at the constraints of his mother. I think they're getting dressed for something, and he's putting on a coat, and she tries counseling, and he's like, "The fuck do I need your opinion for? You get out of here." And I at least a little bit of that is being driven by basically him having someone that basically seems like she worships him, and he doesn't need to lean on his mother even slightly anymore. I don't think he really wanted to before, but now she's giving him the confidence to move away from his mother. And I mean, that sounds like a really Norman Bates sort of thing going on here, but it's yeah. I think that's exactly what's happening in that scene.
I guess going back to your warm-blooded comment, it actually, in this conversation, sort of connected some dots. which is that I think Cersei points out how scantily clad she dresses, maybe, and
Call her
Harlot. And it sort of like connects the dots when she's like, "Oh, well, do you need like this weather too cold for you?" I was like, "Oh, I'm warm-blooded," which really means like I'm not going to cover up because being scantily clad is my value. Like that's my power over you because you're young and you're stupid.
And she
Anyway.
uses it as a weapon. She uses herself as a weapon, and I think that's another thing. Like I go back to, she doesn't change exactly who she is to do any of this stuff. She just plays to a different part of herself who she actually is. She doesn't have to use this gorgeous stuff to outline her body. She's really good looking as is. She doesn't have to be this nice little pretty naive young thing. She's just genuinely someone who can empathize, and empathy is a weapon. Don't let anyone ever tell you differently. Empathy is a weapon, and she can empathize with anyone. She understands exactly what they feel, exactly what they think, and to do that, she's able to use her nature to kind of get inside of them.
I think it also.
I think the only person she's really charming is Joffrey. I think that she's genuine and kind, or at least attempting to be, to everyone else.
I was going to say, I think maybe part of the things that frustrate Cersei is that the way she played the game of a new queen is not the same way that Marjorie is playing the way of a new queen. Cersei was sold off into being the queen, and she thought it was such an honor because she got to marry the battle hero.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was like every girl in the land wanted to marry him, and he was mine by right. Like, and so that's how she got into marriage. Was like she didn't have to politic or anything. Like she was like connected via connecting the houses, whereas Marjorie sort of takes it as, you know, she's gotta maybe play some games and you know, get to the point where Cersei is, where, I mean, Marjorie doesn't have any spies in the capital. She has to start building that network because I'm sure if she knows enough about the Game of Thrones to know that you can't have blindsides in the capital. So I don't know. I just think that's interesting, like comparing to how they came to power, is that Marjorie was sort of still sold into, you know, married into it, but Marjorie wanted the power, whereas Cersei just sort of got given the power and thought she was winning the husband lottery, which turned out to be a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Marjorie knows that Joffrey's not a philanderer, and Robert was.
True.
Yeah, Joffrey likes to get his jollies off a whole different way.
Yes.
And so he has to figure out how to allow him to get his jollies off and still keep her power.
It's
preferably
alive.
And come out of that alive.
It's a what are you comfortable with thing. I mean, if you found out you could get ultimate, you know, it's the great would you rather. Would you be able to get everything you wanted, but let someone else suffer in the process, knowing they will suffer? That's something you could live with. If this guy's like, yeah, I want to watch you kill something. Yeah, I just sit in my room stroking my weapon. You know, unintended, that's kind of what he's doing, right? It's like, do you just kind of let that happen then to keep him satiated? Or do you like, no, dude, you're a monster that people have confirmed, you know, your inside little bird chirped at you that, yeah, he is a monster. But you get to be queen. You know, what are you comfortable with? Where's that person's comfort level?
Well, and we also got to remember, it's not just about comfort level. It's not just about playing the game. This is actually about her life. she's being married one way or another. That's not something that's up for discussion. So she is going to be living with a sadistic, masochistic, Gary-loving, evil, thing.
Free loves me? Oh my gosh, I'm so honored.
But she needs to find a way to live with this, and she needs to do
Joffrey
it.
strives
fast.
to be as good as I am. Let's be honest.
She needs to find a way to live with this. She needs to do it fast, and she needs to play a game to save herself at this point. Like we are discounting that because she is such a strong and intelligent character. She's in the exact same position Sansa was in. And we saw what he did to Sansa. He broke Sansa mentally. And she needs to build all her ways she can to prevent that from happening to her.
Exactly. Well, with that point, unless anyone else has anything left to say here, I think we can officially kind of wrap up this episode here. So for next time, we will be watching episodes 3 and episode 4 for season 3. Episode 3 is Walk of Punishment, and episode 4 is And Now His Watch is Ended. So, much like Jorah Mormont saying to Samwell Tarly, I forbid you to die until the next episode releases here. Thanks everyone for listening, and hope you have a good one.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Bye.